In 1974, the astrophysicist Frank Drake, supported by the famous astronomer Carl Sagan, studied how to compose a message to send into space towards an extraterrestrial civilization. After formulating the message, it was decided to send it into space using the world's largest telescope, the Arecibo radio telescope. The destination of the signal was the M13 star cluster. But why was a message sent into space, and what was the content of the message? Watch the entire video because we will answer these questions, and at the end, we will also talk about a possible response that might have already arrived. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel to support us. Astrophysicist Frank Drake was one of the founders of SETI, the project that seeks to discover potential signals from space emitted by extraterrestrial intelligences. He also wrote the famous Drake equation, a formula used to estimate the number of extraterrestrial civilizations in our galaxy that are advanced enough to transmit detectable messages. In 1972, Drake, together with Carl Sagan, helped design the images on the aluminum plaques installed on the Pioneer probes. Later, he was the technical director of the creation of the Golden Record mounted on the two Voyager probes, which recorded sounds and images of Earth. The Golden Record is a sort of message in a bottle sent via the Voyagers. The two probes have left the solar system and are now in interstellar space. Therefore, Drake was certainly one of the most active astrophysicists in seeking contact, so to speak, with extraterrestrial civilizations. In 1974, to send his radio message, he used what was, for over 50 years, the world's largest telescope, the Arecibo radio telescope. We need to say a few words about this telescope, which has marked the history of astronomy with its significant discoveries. The telescope was built in 1963 in the state of Puerto Rico, just south of the city of Arecibo. It was constructed inside a natural cavity in the ground capable of accommodating its spherical reflector with a diameter of 305 meters. We're talking about a radio telescope almost as big as 3 football fields. Initially, however, the telescope was built for military purposes, as the United States Army during the Cold War wanted an instrument capable of detecting incoming Soviet missiles. Radio waves travel in a straight line, just like light. AM radio waves, when they meet the ionosphere at a certain angle, are reflected back to Earth. This phenomenon allows them to overcome the obstacle of the Earth's curvature and communicate with very distant areas. FM radio waves, on the other hand, can travel through the ionosphere. This is how the U.S. Army wanted to intercept potential Soviet missiles traveling in the ionosphere to defend themselves well in advance. But when the Army found more effective warning systems, the radio telescope was handed over to scientists. Therefore, the Arecibo radio telescope, besides capturing radio signals, could also send them into space because it was equipped with a powerful transmitter. In 1974, the telescope received an upgrade to its transmitter, increasing its power, and astrophysicist Drake took the opportunity to send a message into space to an extraterrestrial civilization. The upgrade increased the transmitter's power to the point that the message could be detected even on the other side of the galaxy. The destination was the M13 star cluster, located about 25,000 light-years away. The goal was for the message to reach the largest number of stars, and this cluster contains more than 100,000. The idea was that if there was some other intelligent form of life out there, it would have the technology to receive the message. However, no matter how intelligent an extraterrestrial civilization may be, it obviously doesn't speak our language, so the message had to be formulated in a universally understandable way. Drake thought about how to construct a message that could be understood by anyone who received it. With the support of scientists from Cornell University, Drake created a message consisting of 106 and 79 bits. A bit is a binary digit that represents the smallest unit of information because it can only take 2 values. We can think of it as 0 and 1 or off-on, which is why some switches have 0 and 1. We can consider a bit as black or white, and so on. The number 1679 is a special number called a semi-prime because it can be obtained as the product of 2 prime numbers, 23x73. Considering the bits as black and white, for example, if they are arranged in 73 columns and 23 rows, no meaningful message is obtained. But if they are arranged in 23 columns and 73 rows, the message appears. Now let's see how the message was constructed and what it meant. Drake decided to divide the message into 7 parts. At the top, the numbers from 1 to 10 are represented in binary code. In this line, Drake wanted to convey to the recipient of the message the numerical system used by humans. Deciphering this part is essential to understanding the meaning of the rest of the message. In the second line, the composition of our DNA is explained. There are 5 numbers, If an extraterrestrial civilization had developed technology capable of receiving this message, it would most likely be familiar with physics and chemistry. Well, these numbers represent certain chemical elements identified by their atomic number, i.e., the number of protons in the atom's nucleus. The chemical elements represented are hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus, the elements that make up our DNA. Once this line is understood, the third line can be easily deciphered, as it explains the molecules that make up our DNA. Moving downwards, some visual representations appear. The part colored in blue depicts the double helix of our DNA. In the fifth section, we are telling the aliens how we are made. The double helix of DNA ends where the silhouette of a human being is depicted. On the left, the average height of a human being is also indicated. In fact, the number 14 is represented, which, multiplied by the wavelength of the message, 126 mm, gives the height of about 1.76 meters. On the right, this number, 4, 292, 853, 750, indicates the number of inhabitants on planet Earth at the time. In another part, our solar system is represented. On the left, we have the Sun. This is Earth, whose position is raised compared to the other planets to indicate where the message was sent from. If you notice, Pluto is also included because, at the time, it was the 9th planet in the solar system before being reclassified as a dwarf planet. Finally, in the last row, the Arecibo telescope is depicted. Since it sent the signal, it couldn't be excluded from the message. I'm not sure exactly why it was drawn downward, but this is the telescope's mirror. And what looks like an M is the signal being sent from the transmitter, reflected on the mirror and sent into space. Below, the number 2430 is indicated, which, multiplied by the wavelength of the message, gives the diameter of the telescope. If this message seemed too complex, know that before creating the final version of the message, Drake anonymously sent parts of the binary code to several scientists. Well, they all managed to decode their part, so if an alien civilization were advanced enough to have several scientists, it could understand the Arecibo message. As mentioned, the M13 cluster is 25,000 light-years away from us, so the message will reach its destination in 25,000 years. But in 2001, it seemed that a response to the Arecibo message had arrived. In England, near the Chilbolton Astronomical Observatory, a crop circle appeared with a configuration similar to the message written by Drake. Crop circles are designs made by flattening plants, forming various geometric shapes visible from above. So could the Arecibo message have been intercepted by someone during its journey through space? Because from the time it was sent until 2001, the message traveled for almost 28 years. But if it were intercepted by some alien, the message would travel 14 years to reach the aliens, and then it would take another 14 years for the aliens' message to reach us. However, in the direction of the Arecibo signal, 14 light-years away, there are no stars or planetary systems, and thus no form of life. Additionally, the beam of the signal sent with the Arecibo telescope has a width of almost 1/15 the diameter of the full moon. So it is a beam that covers a very narrow portion of the sky, making it unlikely to have been intercepted by a spacecraft traveling precisely in that small part of the sky. Finally, if an alien civilization had received the signal, why wouldn't it respond with another radio signal instead of creating a crop circle? It's a rather primitive choice of communication for an advanced alien civilization. Crop circles have been debunked. We know they were made by humans, so what seemed to be the response to the Arecibo message is nothing more than a playful joke by someone. When the message was sent in 1974, the radio signal lasted less than 3 minutes and was transmitted only once. If an alien civilization were in the direction of the signal, it would have to be listening precisely during those 3 minutes, or it would miss the message or only receive a part of it. The Arecibo message wasn't a real attempt to communicate with an extraterrestrial civilization. It was more a demonstration that a message could be constructed that could be understood by anyone who didn't speak our language. And if the message were really intercepted by an alien civilization, when it reaches the M13 cluster, about 25,000 years will have passed, and we would have to wait another 25,000 years to receive a response. Will it be a friendly response, or should we expect an alien invasion? If you've seen the movie Contact, you'll have seen the protagonist, played by actress Jodie Foster, working at the Arecibo Observatory for the SETI project. However, today the telescope no longer exists because in 2020, due to insufficient maintenance funds, the telescope suffered severe damage that caused the transmitter to collapse onto the reflector, irreparably damaging it. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.